Cool intro sound.
Alright, how's it going, guys? AlphaYGO back at it again, but boy, has it been a long time since I've done one of these. And well, as you can probably tell, it's the long-awaited DDD deck profile for the new Master Rule 5 or Master Rule revision, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of things are changing. Not only were there a lot of cards about to be released to support this deck, but the new Master Rule has definitely changed it up a bunch. And a lot of you guys have asked me what my take on the new list is going to be, and the honest answer is, I don't know. The only reason I don't know is because not even in my wildest dreams and imagination would I imagine any of these factors to come true. I didn't think needle fiber would come through. I didn't think we'd get our new Master Rule like this. I didn't think anything like that. I was just hoping that DD would just survive some way somehow, but I didn't think it would come back to life like this. I'm going to show you guys what a prototype is going to look like for the new Master Rule. This list is incredibly flexible, so you can put in as much spice as you want. So feel free to change it however you like, because this is like the bare bones skeleton of what a DD profile is going to end up looking like, and my take on the most consistent version possible at the moment. Before we get into it, let me know in the comments below if you want me to go into really detailed guides and theories about this deck, because you know I love this deck to no end and I constantly think about this deck. It's almost a little bit of a problem. I'll just go in through all the ins and outs of what this deck is supposed to do, what it can do, what it wants to do, what it doesn't want to do, you know, etc, etc. So feel free to let me know, but without further ado, let's get right into the video. Starting off our list, we have, of course, triple Savant Kepler. This is without a doubt like, you know, your numero uno starter and the one that searches your gate, which is like your consistency cards. So of course you want to be summoning it. And then we're running 3 Copernicus. Now, this is already a controversial topic of whether you want to run 2 or 3. I'm running 3 at the moment because we're trying to maximize absolutely on all our combo pieces and our starters. This is not requiring any pendulum engine like the ones you've seen on my channel before. I think that build requires its own separate video and its own separate list. So we're not running any pendulum turbo cards, and we're only running DD cards in this basically. At the moment, I think that it kind of falls into this weird philosophy where you only really want like 3 solid normal summons in a deck, but at the same time, Copernicus can be an extender if you have like a slime. So it's kind of weird in that regard, but the number is usually between 2 to 3 for this card. Following that, we of course have triple Ragnarok. Goes without saying how powerful this card is, and boy, am I surprised that like, apparently the supers for this thing have skyrocketed. I'm like, bro, I'm glad I've had these ever since like they first got released in the OTS, so that's pretty neat. Next we have 2 Savant Thomas. Savant Thomas is something people would either run at like 1 or 2, and I'm opting for 2 in this case. As you see in other profiles, I ran it at 3 because in those combos, in those videos, you required this card, so that's why you would run it at like full count. But in this situation, you're only running 2. And of course, one of the new cards that we haven't received yet, but this guy, I cannot remember his name for my life. There's a new wave of support for all the rivals and like antagonists of the anime series, and this is one of them. I think his main utility is, well, one, it's a more flexible version of the Doom Armageddon guy that's already sometimes played. I know you guys sometimes see me run that just so I can make the Coach King trainer play. This is a more flexible version of that card and helps us turbo out to Gilgamesh if we want to. So it's a much more flexible card and definitely a good boost to the deck. Now, straying away from our Pendulum DD monsters, we're going to of course get into the saucy cards like triple Lamia, without a doubt, incredibly powerful. Triple Swirl Slime, this is about as standard as it gets at the moment. And triple Necro Slime. Necro Slime is something that you see people kind of cut down a lot more in the recent times, even I have, because it's a bit of a dead card unless you find a way to get it into grave. But now that we're running a more pure DD deck, this shouldn't be a problem. It's definitely a card you want to run at least 2 to 3 of, so you know, fidget with the numbers. And the 2 DD 1-ofs are 1 Vice Typhon and 1 DD Ghost. DD Ghost is actually really good in terms of resource manipulation, but the reason you never ran DD Ghost before is because it's like there was no optimal way to bring it out. You either had to search it or dump it or resurrect it. But now with Needle Fiber, you can just special out from the deck. This card lets you recycle your resources and gain you more resources really easily, and it's such a good card in that regard where it's like Needle Fiber didn't just boost us with an extra special from deck. Ghost is actually a very, very powerful card in this deck because one of our weakest things was burning out too quickly. But this card lets you stay in the game past turn 1, which is amazing. And Vice Typhon is like another good like utility of another Necro Slime that lets you get into High King Genghis. It's a level 7. It's just all around a great card, but of course not a card you want to be seeing in your hand too often. Following that, of course, we have triple Dark Contract with the Gate. This is as standard as it gets. It's your rota of the deck, right? And of course, there's a lot of low-key problems with this card, but it's still like a mandatory card, obviously. And then we run the 1 Swamp King. Swamp King is basically another starter card because all our fusions are starter cards. It's just solid in general, but it is kind of annoying because it's not a monster in itself, which kind of prevents you from popping off sometimes, but it's still gonna help you get through some plays that might otherwise fail. Following is triple Allure of Darkness. I'm not even a big fan of Allure of Darkness anymore, just because, as you guys can imagine, it's not really a plus card. It's just a card that fixes your hand, and sometimes it doesn't even fix your hand. Sometimes it just makes it worse because you gotta gamble for it and it doesn't work out the way you want to sometimes. So if you want to, you can start cutting this card down, but we're running 3 for absolute quote-unquote consistency, because unless you're seeing your combo cards in your hand, you're probably gonna have a hard time playing. So you're gonna have to run a bit of a risky card like this. Next up, we're running 3 Into the Void. Yes, we're running Into the Void because most of the time, all of our combos are gonna use up our entire hand anyways, and we might as well be trying to thin down our deck as much as possible to basically see our combo pieces. Because again, if you don't see your combo pieces, you're gonna struggle in a pure DD list. And of course, with that logic, we're running 1 Upstart. Cut down your deck to a 36 card deck, right? So why not? With this though, we are not running Pot of Desires because I'm not a big fan of that card, but I know why the logic of that card is so strong, because as you can see, we're running so many 3-ofs, but I'm just not a fan of that card, so I opt to run other cards. And in this case, I'm running 3 Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a really double-edged sword as well, because it's the card that lets you get your plays through without getting disrupted, but at the same time, it's not a combo card, so you're just kind of bricking yourself, right? It's a bit of a double-edged sword in that regard. So you gotta be careful in your deck building as to whether this card's worth it or not. At the moment, I haven't had a problem with it, so I'm keeping it the way it is, but this can be easily changed for other things in the future as well. And because we wanted to keep it at 40 card list, we only have 3 more spots left, which are all 1-ofs, which is 1 for 1, a Foolish Burial, and a Monster Reborn. 1 for 1 and Foolish Burial, you've probably seen a million times in DD profiles, and like, it makes a lot of sense, right? Turbo Kepler, Turbo any level 1 in your deck, Foolish anything in your deck because they're all grave oriented. And Monster Reborn is a bit of a flexible spot. Monster Reborn is good because going first, it's an extra extender in some regards, especially if you get disrupted. Going second is not too terrible because you can like threaten things in the grave. So let's say, for example, if you're still facing Orcust in Master Rule 5, you can Monster Reborn go for their Dingirsu and they have to shotgun the skeleton to bring it out, and you just ate through one of their negates, right? Or if they don't, you just get a free Dingirsu. So, you know, stuff like that can be really cool in terms of like utility, but this card can definitely be subbed out. Like, since we're running like Into the Voids and Upstarts and Monster Reborns, you can see how some of these cards can be switched out for like hand traps, right? So it's not the end of the world. So this deck might seem really glass cannon in that regard, but at the same time, it just makes it all the more flexible, whether you're siding or changing your deck list for future metas. And starting off with our extra deck, we might as well get these guys out of the way. The linked monsters of this deck, which are going to be Cloth Thief, Needle Fiber, and Gilgamesh. Now, in this list, we're not running Electromite, and we're not running any other good utility linked monsters at the moment, because I just want to showcase to you guys the trio here, because I think Electromite would be the honorary 4th. I think those 4 are like the best link monsters to go into with this deck. Let's start with the most lackluster one. We all know that Gilgamesh has a lot of drawbacks because it locks you into DD, and your deck's not really even meant to make DD monsters, ironically, for your end board. And it's kind of just annoying because it's like Konami's gonna make something like Orcus be able to abuse non-Orcus monsters like IP Masquerena and Borosaur like crazy, but we can't abuse something like random synchros and Ixies. You know, it's a bit ridiculous, but Gilgamesh is just really good. If you get disrupted in your plays, Gilgamesh is a fantastic backup plan because it lets you set up something, which is better than just dying straight out, right? And Gilgamesh in that regard is a good contingency plan to a lot of your plays that get screwed up. So I think it's still valid to play at 1, and as you saw before, with the new level 8, it's even easier to bring out technically, so it's not a terrible card, honestly. And of course, Needle Fiber is, without a doubt, just everyone knows how strong it's been since the dawn of its release and teaser, and the fact that this card supports this deck so well, it's crazy. Because our deck just inherently runs a lot of tuners and relies on those tuners, it adds a new element. It doesn't just bring out Lamia or like any other tuner, it brings out DD Ghost, which completely changes this deck's dynamic, and the fact that it has no good follow-up play to having good follow-up play, which is absolutely amazing. And the fact that this can let you like create more negates on your opponent's turn, which I'll show you some space like later on in future videos. And of course, Cloth Thief. Cloth Thief is basically the honorary DD monster. Cloth Thief is basically what Gilgamesh should have been, but it's just crazy because it's like our deck is obviously focused all around fusion monsters in the beginning of our plays, and it's so nutty that like it doesn't have to be fusion summoned while Cloth Thief's on the field. it can just be special summon back. So it's like, imagine you have Claw Thief. You bring out Ragnarok, you bring back out Mini Genghis. That will trigger Claw Thief to bring out anything else from your grave, which is like, you know, a level 4 or lower DD monster, let's say. And that'll trigger Genghis again, and it's just ridiculous. And I'm like, bro, that's insane. This card is meant for DDD, in my opinion. So absolutely amazing card, and I'm definitely picking this card up the moment it drops. But as you can imagine, yeah, that's like the trio of this deck. You know, are great, fantastic starters. Other Link monsters, I think, yeah, I would still run them, but, you know, like the generic ones like Nightmares or Appaloosa. But this extra deck is still flexible, so like you can fit them in anywhere you like, honestly. So of course we have not only 2 Mini Genghis for our starter plays, we also have 1 High King Genghis. This ratio is basically all we need to facilitate all our combo plays and whatnot, and you don't really need any more than this. Rest in peace to D-Arc. I really wish I could keep playing you, but the extra deck is flexible, but we just want really cool plays to go off, right? So we're just kind of beta testing with a lot of stuff right now. We have 1 Alexander for, again, one of our stepping stone plays like the others, and we have Meteor Burst. Meteor Burst is a bit of an interesting pick because it lets you not only get Ragnarok's Pendulum effect off first, then bring it out using his monster effect and abusing it really well. It kind of helps facilitate those plays, and of course, as you can imagine, it's just good to step right into a Crystal Wing as well. Now the thing with Crystal Wing is a lot of people are like super excited that they can spam Crystal Wing like crazy with the new master rule under like Zolkin in this deck, anything. But for those of you who are a bit skeptical like I am about the whole Crystal Wing thing, because I'm a little skeptical, is because in this deck you need the level 7 synchro monsters out with Lamia to bring it out, right? And that's not always the case every game because, you know, people have hand traps, people have disruption. It's not going to be easy to bring this out all the time. So something you might want to, you know, think about is running cards like Draco Berserker, which is kind of like a watered down Crystal Wing, but it's technically more generic, right? It doesn't need the synchro monster to make it, right? So in that regard, it's a little more generic, it's a little more easy to access, and it still kind of does the job, but not like obviously as well. If you take this deck to events, these are the kind of decisions you gotta make, right? You gotta kind of weigh the pros and cons of like high risk, high reward sort of situations, you know what I mean? So, you know, keep in mind with cards like this, there's a lot of other monsters you can make in this deck as well, like an insane amount that no one ever talks about, which I'm gonna talk about in like future videos. And continuing from that point though, we do have the 2 other level 8 synchros, a Spell and Trap Negate and technically an Omni Negate. I always said that the Bro Savage was kind of like the new age Crystal Wing for this deck because it's like you're probably going to end up having Link monsters in your grave, but again, you're not always going to have that, right? So that's when your ability to deck build comes to shine. So at the moment, we're just running these because these are kind of like covering all bases, but best believe like if I keep testing, I feel like these guys aren't always live, I'm probably going to swap them out eventually, right? So that's the kind of decisions you got to make. With this card, you can like, you know, bring it off of Needle Fiber, draw a card, go into another negate, which is absolutely fantastic. The combos are insane, especially with this card. And I like the fact that it's another card that, along with DD Ghost, lets you have follow-up play, which is super important for this deck. And for the rank 8s, we of course have 1 Horde Harbinger, the staple rank 8, along with Kali-Yuga, which is like the big boy boss. If you play DDD, you're definitely playing Kali-Yuga. And the 15th spot can be literally anything because I'm like, there's no good 15th card that's absolutely perfect for this deck. So at the moment, I'm just going to be showcasing off like a Photon Lord. The only reason is because my philosophy here is sort of like, Horde Harbinger is just solid all around, but sometimes you might just really need a monster negate. So it's like, you might as well cover all bases. Because at least in the synchros, you're covering all bases, right? So in the Ixies, you might as well be covering all bases as well. And Kali-Yuga is obviously like all around go second, like monster to drop, right? So you guys can kind of see what I'm saying here with that, right? Alright, but with that said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know I kind of rambled on here and there about, you know, some of the most simple things, but this deck has a lot more layers than people kind of give it credit for, and I kind of want to express all those kind of deep and intricate thoughts that make, you know, an average DD list from a really good DD list. But at the same time, I don't believe in a perfect list for this deck either because it's such a flexible deck. Like the extra deck I showed you right now could 100% be different from another person's list, and you couldn't really justify which one's the correct one because this deck can make so many different types of monsters in the extra deck that it's insane. That's why this deck isn't very cookie cutter, right? That's why the combos are so complicated because there's so many different lines of play with different types of monsters you run into extra deck. So again, I want to go into all that detail in future videos, and I'm sure a lot of you are asking, why aren't you running this? Why are you running this? All this and that. I'll make sure to answer all those in future videos. So if you guys really want to hear that kind of stuff, please let me know in the comments below. I can share my thoughts, you can share your thoughts back to me. We can like kind of brainstorm different cool ideas for this because I really want this deck to be great again, and I want all your guys' help to bring it back to the top. So with that said, guys, I'll catch you guys later.